So the Las Vegas Raiders are at a very interesting point of the 2024 NFL season. They're a team that's 2-2. They're a team that's potentially found their identity. And they're a team that went through this major news cycle just a couple weeks back where their head coach called out the entire team, or maybe it was a couple of players. And Jack Jones was one of those players that was essentially called out. And he was asked about the entire situation. So just to rewind a little bit, if you guys don't know exactly what happened, Antonio Pierce went after the Las Vegas Raiders lost to the Carolina Panthers. He went and did his presser. He essentially said that there were guys that made business decisions, and Jack Jones was one of those guys. And there were other guys as well, but Jack Jones was definitely one of those guys. And Jack Jones ended up getting benched against the Cleveland Browns, right? So the very last game he was benched. He didn't play the first quarter of the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Cleveland Browns. And Jack Jones was actually asked about it. He's asked a little bit about him getting benched. Antonio Pierce and kind of how he's going to respond to that, and check out what he had to say, because I love Jack Jones for this right here.
And for you, coming off a week where the first quarter you had to sit or whatnot, do you feel like that shows the bond between you and Antonio, that you could go through that and come out on the other side?
I mean, me and AP been doing this for so long, man. You know what I'm saying? Me and him have an understanding.
To me, that answer right there by Jack Jones is exactly why I'm such a fan of Jack Jones. You know, there's guys out there that get called out by their coaches and they run and cry and request trades. There's guys out there that might miss their run blocks and, ultimately they're not doing what they're supposed to do. There's guys that miss tackles, and Jack Jones is one of those guys, right? He missed tackles against Carolina Panthers. And he gets called out. He responds, and he responds well. He doesn't cry. He takes the criticism. And he's ready for the following week when that opportunity comes, right? He understands where he's messed up, and he's ready to move forward. And to me, that's such a great thing to have as a player, because not every player has that. Another thing with Jack Jones is, some people want to say, hey, he wasn't trying out there against the Carolina Panthers. He wasn't giving effort. And I don't think that's why Antonio Pierce benched Jack Jones. I think it's more so the fact that he was just missing tackles. And if you guys watch tape, you guys would know this with Jack Jones. He's always kind of been bad at tackling. He's always missed tackles. He hasn't been the greatest at tackling. So to me, I don't think Jack Jones wasn't trying necessarily. I think he just couldn't do what you need him to do in those moments, right? Which is make the tackle, wrap up, bring a guy down. Because he's had plenty of plays where he does tackle, he does give effort, he chases plays backside. But the fact that Jack Jones responds well to the criticism, right? He understands AP. Him and AP have that relationship. To me, absolutely love how he kind of answers that question. But I also want to talk about some of the other guys in that defensive back room that are kind of being overlooked a little bit. Nate Hobbs is obviously a slot corner, and I will say this, the slot corner position is different than the outside corner position. Just because you're labeled a quote-unquote cornerback doesn't actually mean it's the same responsibility across the board. Being on the inside is much different than being a boundary corner, right? They're two different positions, essentially. And Nate Hobbs has been really, really good at what he does in the slot, but it's been Ja'Cory Bennett that's been kind of dominating for the Raiders. Now, I don't know if this will hold up as he gets targeted a little bit more, but right now, Ja'Cory Bennett statistically ranks as the fourth best cornerback when you look at the reception percentage allowed. And keep in mind, we're going to make sure this doesn't include cornerbacks that have like 10 snaps or whatever. For cornerbacks, over 150 snaps. Ja'Cory Bennett ranks fourth best in terms of reception percentage allowed. To me, that's absolutely incredible, because this guy's been targeted 15 times, which is basically on pace with pretty much the rest of the guys around him. He hasn't given up a touchdown either. So Ja'Cory Bennett, to me, has been really, really good. And I want to see this guy just continue to have success. I want to see this guy continue to be a good cornerback. He's also broken up a ton of passes, which in its own right is impressive. And if you guys just watch the tape, or if you guys just watch the games, we all know Ja'Cory Bennett's looked good out there, right? So I want to see Ja'Cory Bennett continue to do his thing. And what's interesting about Bennett is he's only in year 2. Jack Jones is in year 3. And those guys are essentially really young still, right? I think sometimes we think guys come in day one and they're already, top tier corners, or the best corners in the NFL. Sometimes it takes time, right? But I'm excited to continue to watch these guys develop as these guys continue to get better and better. And some other news, right? I don't know if this is 100% fact, but Max Crosby is expected to play for the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, it's not guaranteed. It's not 100% fact. but he is expected to play for the Raiders. He did practice in full for the Las Vegas Raiders. But I shouldn't say in full. He was technically limited according to the Raiders injury report. But based off of watching Max Crosby out there, being able to watch some of the tape that comes out of practice, he looks comfortable. He looks good to me. It's not noticeable. He's not limping. There's nothing that tells me Max Crosby is not going to play for the Raiders against the Denver Broncos. And I think this is massive, massive news for the Raiders. You know, you need Max Crosby going into this game. Yes, our defensive ends stepped up, and our defensive ends got it done last week. Tyree Wilson did a good job. Some of the other guys, Charles Snowden, the Clavon Chasen, Janarius Robinson played a little bit as well. Those guys did their thing last week, but to me, the Denver Broncos offensive tackles are not the Cleveland Browns offensive tackles. It's two completely different set of tackles, essentially, right? The Browns basically had both backups at their tackle position. The Broncos have their starters in. So it's not going to be as easy for the Raiders' backup defensive ends to get home against the Broncos tackles. But having Max Crosby will allow us to have more success. And hopefully Christian Wilkins, Adam Butler are also able to kind of do what they did last week and kind of over the course of this season, right? They've been very, very solid, if you guys ask me. So hopefully the Raiders can come in this week and Max Crosby is good to go. And I'm excited for it, man. The Denver Broncos matchup is such a huge matchup. And we have a ton of injuries, man. You guys can look at the injury report. The Raiders have so many guys out. Now, some of these guys matter. Some of these guys don't really matter. But, like, you know, having guys like Thayer Munford and Michael Mayer out, I think does impact the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, DJ Glaze has looked good and Brock Bowers has looked great. But to me, I think having Thayer Munford potentially be able to come in also makes it easier for the Raiders because of the fact that you have a guy with experience. You know, we haven't played a guy, we haven't played a team that has two sets of really, really, really good defensive ends. Right? We haven't really played that team yet. We might play that team here in a couple of weeks, but having DJ Glaze out there, to me, you know, although he does a really good job at times, he also struggles at times. And it's okay if you want to just roll forward with DJ Glaze because you only develop by getting your ass kicked. And yeah, that makes sense to keep DJ Glaze out there. But I think for the Raiders, if you want to win games, Thayer Munford makes sense. Plus, last week, we utilized a sixth offensive lineman a ton, right? I think like 7-8 snaps last week, we utilized that sixth offensive lineman. And who knows, maybe this week we utilize it even more going forward, right? So I think having a guy like Thayer Munford could be beneficial to the Raiders. I think Michael Mayer is a lot bigger than that as well. I think having a guy like Michael Mayer could definitely impact the Raiders. Now, he still is out due to personal reasons. I'm not sure what the hell that is. I'm not sure if he wants to be traded. I find that hard to believe. Honestly, if Michael Mayer wanted to be traded, there's no reason why he wouldn't be traded within 2 days, right? Michael Mayer has value out there, right? There's teams out there that'll take a Michael Mayer caliber player. And at this point, you know, you've already drafted him. I know he was a second round pick. You're going to get like a third at best, probably a fourth. So to me, I don't see why a team wouldn't give up a pick for Michael Mayer. So I don't think it's that he's requested a trade or anything to that tune. Another guy that's going to be questionable going into this game is going to be Dylan Parham. He was limited today. Hopefully Parham's able to play. I think the Raiders' best offensive line is Colton Miller, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Andre James, and then Dylan Parham, right? You got to have Dylan Parham back. And then, of course, DJ Glaze, Thayer Munford, however you guys want to look at that. But Dylan Parham's a big part of this offense line having success. Even last week, if you guys watched the film breakdown I did yesterday, there was a big difference from the time that Dylan Parham got hurt, the time that Cody Whitehair came in. Our offense line did not look as good. And to me, you got to have a healthy offensive line going into this game, specifically because of the fact that Alexander Madison's starting this week, man. And I'm so excited to watch Alexander Madison. But I hope we have a starting offensive line because I think that's going to be a big part of it. You know, a run game is only as good as the run scheme and offensive line that it's in, essentially. Right? You can have Josh Jacobs for 5 years and his best year will only be when you have that one scheme that just comes out of nowhere and you have success with it. But as soon as defenses make an adjustment, and if you have an average offensive line, you might not have success. And we saw that with Josh Jacobs as an example. And Jacobs is a great running back, right? Physically, he's a really, really, really good running back. Alexander Madison, we don't really know if he's good or not, but he's had success in the limited carries that he's had. And he's going to have his opportunity in this game. He's going to be the full-time starter for the Las Vegas Raiders. Zamir White is out.
For me, it's I practice, I prepare mentally, physically, the same way every single week.
I've done so all my career. Had some great mentorship that let me know, prepare like you're the starter every single time. Since college, I've had that mentality. So for me, nothing changes. Just go in there and make sure whatever capacity that is, I'm just giving it my all, trying to help the team win.
And I'm excited to see what this guy can do. And then hopefully Dylan Labe gets a little bit of carries as well for the Raiders, because Labe has upside, but we haven't really seen him. He's played special teams. He's done his thing on special teams, but I want to see this guy get some runs. Also, one of the things to note with Alexander Mattison potentially struggling as a full-time running back is scheme matters as well. This scheme, I think, is a lot better than some of the past schemes for Alexander Mattison specifically, right? So I'm excited to see what ends up happening. And of course, let's wrap this video up talking about an anonymous survey that came out. This was a survey that The Athletic did, and there was a part of the survey that I really appreciated, and that was a question. Who is the most annoying player in the NFL? Like, essentially, tell us who you think is annoying. Rather that's trash talking, or you just don't find, positive, essentially, right? Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins ended up being 2 of the top 6 guys within that. That's interesting, right? And a part of that is because of the fact that they trash talk, right? Last year, this survey actually utilized the words trash talk. This week, they changed that to most annoying, right? I don't know why they changed it exactly, but this year they're going to call it the most annoying player. So Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby are up there. And a part of that is because of the trash talking these guys do on the field. To me, that's a positive, right? Because these guys aren't average players, right? These guys are really, really good players as well. So Christian Wilkins will dominate players, and he also will let you know when you get dominated. And we've seen Christian Wilkins actually do that, right? We've seen Christian Wilkins, when he dominate, let the guy know, right? We've seen it on tape. We've seen it in the mic'd up moments as well. And then Max Crosby obviously does a lot of talking out there, but these guys back it up, right? So I wanted to just talk to you guys about that because I found it interesting that these 2 guys got a ton of votes. Let me know what you guys think, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.